In a dusty Detroit garage in 1903, an ambitious mechanic surrounded by spare parts and bold dreams assembled what would soon become a revolution on wheels. His name? Henry Ford. And his vision was about to change the world forever. Before Ford came along, cars were luxury toys for the rich, hand-built, expensive, and rare. But Ford believed everyone should have access to mobility, not just the wealthy elite, but farmers, factory workers, teachers, everyone. His first company, the Detroit Automobile Company, failed miserably. Investors pulled out. The cars were too expensive, too slow, and too hard to build. Ford was devastated, but he wasn't done. Not even close. Ford knew he had to rethink everything from scratch. He studied watchmakers and meatpacking plants, fascinated by how small tasks could be broken down. If it worked for sausages, why not for cars? In 1913, Ford introduced the world's first moving assembly line. It was loud, fast, and revolutionary. It cut production time for a Model T from over 12 hours to just 93 minutes. That's faster than some pizza deliveries. To keep up with the pace, he doubled worker wages to $5 a day, unheard of at the time. Reporters called him crazy, but workers flocked to his factories. Turnover dropped. Productivity soared. Ford was onto something. The Model T wasn't flashy. It came in one color, black. But it was rugged, reliable, and simple. And in 1908, it hit the market for $825. Within 5 years, the price dropped to under $300. Suddenly, farmers in Kansas and teachers in Ohio could afford their own car. America's landscape began to change. Roads stretched further. Towns grew outward. The country was no longer shaped by railroads, it was shaped by tires. By the 1920s, more than half the cars in the world were Model Ts. Ford dealerships popped up like diners. The brand was everywhere. Henry Ford didn't just sell cars. He sold freedom, speed, and modern life. The press hailed him as a genius. The man who put the world on wheels, they said. He was on Time magazine's cover. Presidents asked for his advice. Ford had become more than a businessman. He was a symbol. But as Ford's empire grew, so did his ego. He resisted change, even when the world around him evolved. When competitors like General Motors offered more colors and styles, Ford stubbornly stuck to the Model T. GM introduced annual model updates and financing options. Ford's plain black car started to look outdated. By the late 1920s, sales plummeted. Ford tried to fight back, but his refusal to adapt nearly destroyed him. It was his son, Edsel, who convinced him to modernize. Edsel pushed for innovation, design, and marketing, but Henry didn't trust him. Their relationship was strained, filled with tension and power struggles. Eventually, they launched the Model A in 1927. It was a hit, but the damage had been done. Ford had lost its dominance. The company was no longer the unstoppable force it once was. And then came the unions. Ford's factories were brutal. Workers faced long hours, strict rules, and harsh discipline. When labor organizers demanded better conditions, Ford responded with violence, hiring thugs to beat protesters. The 1937 Battle of the Overpass became infamous. Photos of Ford's security beating union members shocked the nation. Public opinion turned. Ford's image as a visionary began to crack. Despite everything, Ford kept building. During World War II, the company shifted to making tanks, planes, and jeeps. The Willow Run plant produced one B-24 bomber every hour. Patriotism temporarily masked the company's inner turmoil. But behind the scenes, Henry Ford was fading. His health declined. He grew more reclusive, paranoid, and erratic. After Edsel's tragic death in 1943, Ford took back control, despite being nearly 80 and unfit to lead. Employees whispered that the company was in chaos. Decisions made no sense. Productivity dropped. Ford's stubbornness now seemed dangerous. The once great innovator was becoming a liability to his own legacy. Eventually, his grandson, Henry Ford II, took over. Young, sharp, and decisive, he cleaned house, firing ineffective executives and rebuilding the company. Under his leadership, Ford found its footing again. The 1950s brought stylish cars, shiny chrome, and roaring engines. The Thunderbird, the Mustang, they weren't just vehicles, they were icons. Once again, Ford was back in the spotlight, this time with flair. Cars became symbols of rebellion, romance, and road trips. Teenagers cruised down highways, families packed trunks for vacations, and somewhere Henry Ford's dream lived on, in every ignition switch turned by an ordinary person. By the time he died in 1947, Henry Ford had built more than just a company. He'd reshaped how people lived, moved, and worked. His story is one of vision, triumph, and the cost of being ahead of your time. Ford's journey wasn't perfect. He stumbled, resisted change, and made enemies. But his impact is undeniable. Without him, the modern world might look very different. Fewer roads, slower lives, and maybe more horses. Funny how the man who built cars hated change, yet his invention forced the world to move faster. It's like inventing the treadmill, but refusing to run. Today, the Ford Motor Company is still here, more than a century later. Hybrid trucks, electric SUVs, self-driving tech, things Henry could barely imagine. But the spirit of innovation remains in every bolt and battery. His dream of affordable mobility lives on. Millions still rely on cars to get to school, work, and home. Ford didn't just change transportation. He changed what it meant to be free. And if you're enjoying this ride through history, maybe hit that subscribe button. Because just like the Model T, great stories are better when shared with everyone. So next time you're stuck in traffic, remember, this all started in a dusty garage with one man, a few tools, and a stubborn belief that the future belonged to everyone. The road ahead is always uncertain, but as long as there are wheels, engines, and dreams, someone will keep driving forward, just like Henry Ford did more than 100 years ago. And who knows, the next big idea might be sitting in another garage right now, waiting for the world to catch up.